newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and David Culhane in New York, Norman Glubach in New York, Richard Threlkeld in Tung Duc, South Vietnam, Morley Safer in the Sinai Desert, and Charles Kuralt on the road, tonight in San Francisco.
Good evening. New York City's school system, the nation's largest, has been shut down for most of this fall term in a dispute of the kind cropping up in many parts of the country, decentralization of authority. Involved have been the city's teachers' union, the Board of Education, and a locally controlled governing board in a Brooklyn ghetto. Now, after marathon weekend bargaining, the striking teachers have approved a settlement, and David Culhane reports.
It was the worst educational crisis in the history of New York, and certainly one of the worst in American memory. New York's teachers voted in their thousands on whether to end the strike. The central issue, how to protect the rights of individual teachers as the city begins the long haul toward decentralization of power in the huge New York school system. The union leadership finally decided that a special new state commission with extraordinary powers would help guarantee the jobs and rights of the teachers. But some opponents of the settlement wanted administrators removed who they said were hostile to union teachers. This raised some question about whether the teachers would ratify the agreement. The vote today ended all doubt. It was an overwhelming endorsement of the settlement. A spokesman for the Honest Ballot Association announced the result.
17,658 teachers voted to accept the agreement and go back to work. 2,738 voted to reject the agreement and stay out.
I'm pleased with the result of the vote. Yes, I am.
Why?
Well, I think that the teachers have, through their long strike, focused the attention finally on the problems that were taking place in Ocean Hill, and I think it won't be as easy to take away the rights of the teachers in Ocean Hill as happened in May of last year.
Well, I think it is a compromise, and I feel that if all parties concerned live up to the agreement, then we're all for it.
Do you think they will live up to the agreement?
Well, I certainly hope so. They didn't before, but let's hope that they do this time.
Sociologist Kenneth Clark agrees that it was indeed a compromise, but he's hopeful that the agreement will open the way toward an orderly development of local community control of the schools.
What the decentralization struggle is all about is the attempt on the part of these people in these deprived communities to see that the principals and the teachers who are being paid to teach their children with the same efficiency that teachers and principals in suburbs. In the suburbs, the parents and the community maintain standards of efficiency for teaching in the schools. We have to have a similar pattern in the New York City schools if we have any hope of raising the achievement of our children.
Doctor, does every city in the United States that wants to decentralize have to go through an experience similar to New York's?
I hope not. I think maybe the problem in New York is to be understood largely in terms of the fact that it's the first. Maybe other cities will be able to learn and avoid some of the mistakes that New York, being first, obviously did not avoid.
It has been a long autumn. Most of us are tired and weary. I hope that the winter and the spring to come will see the start of a new season for our schools, one where the children learn, the parents help, the teachers teach, and where the antagonism is put aside, not out of some magic affection, but out of a common understanding that the schools of this city are for the children of this city, and that we had all better start making these schools into what our children deserve.
The strike is over. The children aren't back yet, but the teachers are, preparing for tomorrow's classes. And the hope is that there will now be a lessening of the racial tensions generated by the school closing. There is already some indication that peace will be a long time coming in the most troubled experimental school district. But the initial move in that direction has been made. Twice in this school year, Agreements have been achieved to end the strike. Both times, these settlements collapsed under charges that one side or another wasn't honoring the bargain. Today, there's a third agreement, and the people of New York hope that this time it sticks. David Culhane, CBS News, New York.
Hi. Oh. Are the girls coming for coffee?
Yes.
Let's make some turnovers. With my Coffee Time pastry kit, it's easy.
Everything's in the package. Poppin' fresh dough, lots of real fruit filling, creamy icing. There's a Pillsbury Coffee Time pastry kit for any time you make coffee. Look for them in the dairy case.
Poppin' fresh. You're so artistic.
A regular Vincent Van Gogh. Oh. Good news, folks. Everything today is thoroughly modern, thoroughly delectable, like Pillsbury's new sweet cream pancake mix.
It's a thoroughly new way to get old-fashioned pancake flavor. Real sweet cream is right in the mix for pancakes that are rich and moist.
Thoroughly scrumptious. Try 'em, folks. The thoroughly modern mixes now from Pillsbury.
The Supreme Court agreed today to hear Adam Clayton Powell's fight with Congress, thus risking a confrontation between the legislative and judicial branches of government. A year and a half ago, the House excluded the Harlem congressman for gross misconduct. He contends the House exceeded its authority, that he met the constitutional requirements for membership. But the House cites another section of the Constitution saying that Congress shall be the sole judge of the qualifications of its members. Although the 90th Congress has adjourned, Powell's lawyers say his claim is important as a matter of principle and for salary and other benefits. After his exclusion, Powell won the special election for his seat, but never tried to claim it. And he won the seat again 2 weeks ago. At a news conference in New York with his lawyer, William Kunstler, Powell reacted to the court's decision.
I personally am extremely gratified that, regardless what the outcome is, at least we are now living again under a republic that has 3 branches of government. I think that's monumental in American history.
Do you feel you'll be able to work with the Nixon administration?
I feel that I'll be able to work with any administration for the good of our republic. I would even have worked with Wallace if he'd got elected. In fact, I had an integrated ticket going, Powell and Wallace.
In January, are you going back to Congress, Mr. Powell?
Oh, yes, most definitely. January 3rd. In fact, I'll be at the caucus. I received my invitation to be at the caucus on January 2nd, and I will be there.
Are you optimistic, Mr. Powell?
I've always been optimistic.
Congressman Powell, what do you expect to gain besides seniority if this appeal is successful?
Well, if the appeal is successful, I expect to gain close to $65,000. That's one thing. But more than that, I expect to gain the fact that, as Mr. Kunstler would tell you, this is the first time in the history of the Republic that this type of case has been adjudicated. Am I right or wrong?
That's correct.
Mr. Powell, what are your feelings about facing the congressman who unseated you in January?
He's not going to be there, sweetheart. He's gone, baby.
Mr. Powell?
Well, let's follow up the lady's question.
Well, it was voted by more than one congressman.
Yes, I know, but it was Mr. Curtis, of course, who presented the resolution, and he's gone with the wind, baby. The Lord moves in mysterious ways one has to perform.
The Russians said today their unmanned Zone 6 landed safely inside the Soviet Union yesterday after being slowed down on re-entry by skipping along the outer edge of the Earth's atmosphere. The United States tested such a braking technique last year with the unmanned Apollo 4 spacecraft, but the Apollo 8 spacecraft, which is to take 3 astronauts around the moon next month, is to return through the atmosphere without skipping so as to shorten its re-entry path.
The acid test. Watch us dramatize how Prestone gives your car extra protection against corrosion. Half of this metal gets coated with magnetic film in Prestone antifreeze, and half goes into antifreeze with ordinary corrosion inhibitors. Into hot acid, one is destroyed in seconds. Look at magnetic film's extra protection. Remember,
Never pick up a stranger, pick up Prestone antifreeze.
I hate school. Why? My sandwiches are so stale, nobody will trade with me. Oh.
Man from Glad, mother flunking out.
Here, Mom. Try Glad sandwich bags with the fold lock top. Fold this flap in, this flap over. Fold lock top locks in sandwich freshness and flavor.
I've learned my lesson.
Get Glad sandwich bags with a full lock top. From Union Carbide.
North Vietnam's chief spokesman in Paris, Xuan Thuy, told UPI today that Hanoi will not agree to the expanded peace talks unless the Viet Cong are permitted to take part as an individual negotiating team. For the Allies, and particularly Saigon, this is the chief obstacle in the way of the talks. The South Vietnamese have been insisting that they will not take part if the Viet Cong are treated as a separate entity. Thuy's statement conflicts sharply with earlier reports that Washington and Hanoi had worked out a system under which there would be only two groups at the negotiating table, the United States and Saigon on one side, and Hanoi and the Viet Cong on the other. South Vietnam's top general in the northern provinces charged today that the communists are continuing operations in the demilitarized zone and thus violating the understanding that led President Johnson to halt the bombing of the north. The officer said there has been a noticeable increase in the movement of enemy troops and supplies through the zone over the past week. The U.S. command earlier reported that there had been 18 enemy violations of the zone, most of them artillery attacks, since the end of the bombing on November the 1st. The command also said that over the weekend, Allied forces encountered large numbers of enemy troops in the Da Nang area, killing 374 of them. American and South Vietnamese casualties were reported light. One of the primary American objectives in the war is to give the South Vietnamese the kind of training that will enable them eventually to take over the major role in the fighting. Well, tonight we get a look at the way one government unit is responding to that training in this report from Richard Threlkeld.
Back at Williams College in 1963, they called him Smitty. Now, after almost 4 years in the Army and 13 months of hell in Vietnam, he is Sergeant Pete Smith, custodian of the lives of 111 Vietnamese Special Forces troops. Pete Smith is just one of a few hundred specially trained Americans who guide the Special Forces units through their own private war with the Communists. They may be Vietnamese or Montagnards, but they are all elite soldiers, and they need that special training because they have one of the dirtiest jobs in this war, luring the enemy into the open. Pete Smith is a veteran. He's been doing this kind of thing for more than a year. That's a lot of responsibility for somebody only 26 years old. The Americans are only supposed to advise these native troops, but in fact they must lead.
When you get in a firefight, things are usually so confused, and the information that gets to you through interpreters as exactly what's happening is sometimes pretty approximate and spotty. Also, it's very slow getting to you, you know. So it's difficult to run the organization and keep the troops moving and adapting yourself to the situation exactly as it is, you know. And lots of times you just have to leave it in the troops' hands and just follow them. And if they go that way, you better go that way too.
Commanders say they're trying to turn this war over to the Vietnamese. Can the Vietnamese do it? Can they handle it?
I say there's a lot that has to be done because it's difficult to find Vietnamese that will take the initiative and really take it out of the Americans' hands. And if nobody takes it out of the Americans' hands, then the American has got to do the job himself. I mean, if he sees something that's got to be done, well, he's going to jump in there and do it and make decisions and so forth. So it's going to be a long road to hoe the way it stands right now.
Pete Smith has an ugly job full of terrible dangers and terrible frustrations. But if what the military analysts here like to call the indigenous forces, the Montagnards and the Vietnamese, are ever to hold their own, they can thank Pete Smith and a lot of other guys like him for it. Richard Threlkeld, CBS News, near Tung Duc, South Vietnam.
By the way, Sergeant Smith has now completed his military duty. He's on his way back to the United States. Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko came out with an unusually conciliatory statement today in which he hailed American moves toward a Vietnam settlement, including the bombing halt. Gromyko, talking to newsmen in Budapest, also indicated the Russians might be willing to cooperate in resolving other world crises. But in return, he said, Moscow expects what he called a more realistic Western attitude toward the Soviet bloc invasion of Czechoslovakia. In Paris, French Premier Couve de Merville announced new economic austerity measures tonight in an effort to restore confidence in the franc. And he said all needed assistance has been pledged by France's Western banking partners. His nationwide statement on French radio and television follows rumors that exchange rates for the franc and the German Deutschmark might be changed. However, speculative activity eased today on the major money markets amid what many observers called a wait-and-see attitude. Prices closed next on the New York Stock Exchange today. The volume was 14,400,000 shares. The exchange index gained 8 cents.
To a goalie, it's a save, save, save. To a surfer, it's a wave, wave, wave. To the colonel, it's a regiment. To a smoker, it's a Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. More taste, fine tobacco. To a gourmet, it's a special sauce. To a cowboy, it's his favorite horse. To a hostess, it's a compliment. To a smoker, it's a Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. More taste, fine tobacco.
If you smoke a filter cigarette, try the taste of Kent.
Mrs. Aristotle Onassis flew to New York from London today, her first return to the United States since her marriage last month. She said her husband, who remained in London on business, would come to New York shortly. The former First Lady plans to rejoin her children and attend a mass on Friday, the 5th anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination. Israel reported today that its troops intercepted another band of guerrillas near the Jordan River during the night and killed 2 of the Arabs. But guerrilla activity is only one of many problems that Israel has to deal with as a result of its victory in the June 1967 war. CBS News correspondent Morley Safer shows us a case in point in the Sinai Desert.
When the Israelis conquered the Sinai a year and a half ago, they found themselves landlords to endless miles of sand, some minerals, thousands of Palestinian refugees, and an unknown number of tough, independent, self-sufficient Bedouin tribesmen. Months ago, they let it be known that they wanted to take a census of the Bedouin. And after much negotiation, the tribesmen agreed. A photograph, a thumbprint, an identity card, in return for an annual gift of wheat and salt. Bedouin women must not be looked at by any man but her husband, and she must not be photographed. The Bedouins live by what organized society calls smuggling, what they regard as normal trade. Their main item of trade is hashish. They carry it from the suppliers in Jordan, across the Negev desert in Israel, through the Sinai, and then to Egypt. Israel does nothing to discourage the trade so long as no hashish is left behind in Israel. On the return journey, the Bedouins sometimes carry weapons to the El Fatah guerrillas in Jordan. This is discouraged by the Israeli army, and that, despite denials, is the main concern of the Israelis with the Bedouin. The Bedouins are prepared to use the advantages of Western science, but never become part of a static society, Arab or Israeli. These people are the Swiss, the neutrals of the Arab-Israeli war. Political boundaries are quite meaningless for them, and anyway, they have only contempt for those weaklings who would live fenced in by walls, borders, or politics. In short, they refuse to settle down, and no one is in a mood to ask them to. Morley Safer, CBS News, somewhere in the Sinai.
In Glasgow, Scotland, at least 20 persons were killed today when trapped by fire in an upholstery factory which had iron bars over the windows and no fire escapes. The bars were installed in the days when the four-story building was used as a liquor warehouse. Film producer Walter Wanger, whose Hollywood career spanned more than 40 years, died today at his New York apartment. Wanger was 74.
Hamburger to go with everything.
Yes. Yes, I'm leaving now.
One of the prices we pay for civilization is what most people call acid indigestion, gas, heartburn, a tense, tight stomach. Well, now there's a modern solution to this distressing problem. Digel. Digel, the extra action antacid with the extra action of simethicone. Look, this white layer of Digel contains effective antacids to neutralize excess acid. This yellow layer contains simethicone in a patented formulation which breaks up bubbles of gas to help relax your tense, tight stomach. Digel with simethicone works as no plain antacid can to give you more complete relief. Digel, the extra action antacid, tablets or liquid.
The San Francisco grand jury has concluded a safety study of what it called the city's one item of memorabilia, cable cars. Among other things, it recommended that the drivers get higher pay. Operating a cable car, the jury said, is, quote, not just a science, but an art. Charles Kuralt's travels recently took him to San Francisco and a ride on a cable car. And here's his report.
If you become morose in Minneapolis or Mason City or Malibu, there's really nothing much you can do about it except take a couple of aspirin and wait for the feeling to go away. But if the blues overtake you in San Francisco, the city has thoughtfully provided a cure. It's impossible to be unhappy very long riding a cable car. In an impersonal age, cable cars invite laughter and love. In a streamlined world, they alone are all Tunerville woodwork, brass-bound handrails, levers and pedals and bells. In a jet-powered time of our lives, they clank along at 9 miles an hour, bearing their cargo of sailors and lovers and kids. Ordinary city transport has to do with gas fumes and noise and exasperation. Cable cars have to do with flowers and sunshine and pretty girls. The ultimate test is this. Even the men who drive them love cable cars.
I came to cable cars mainly for the simple reason that I was big, and they said, well, we need gripmen. So after I got over here, I went over to the buses after I'd been here for a couple of years, and I stayed over there about 4 days, and your nerves are so racked by the people, you know, transfers and handling the change and in and out of traffic, and I couldn't stand it. So I came back to the cable cars where I stay on the tracks. I don't have to worry about transfers. I got a man that handles that for me. He takes the change. I mean, you go 9 miles an hour. It's slow enough where you can have a decent conversation with someone that wants to know about the cable car, that you can stop and run in and get you a Coke if you want. On the bus, you don't have these opportunities.
Now smile.
Now smile real big.
Great.
Yeah, that's good. Now look over this way.
Okay.
People really seem to have fun riding cable cars.
Oh, you get people that will ride 3 and 4 hours sometime that has never ridden cable cars before because, well, just to hear the bells, you know. I mean, you break your gong and you're a complete loss, you know, because there's nothing like hearing the cable car going down the string, jingling, 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 you know.
In the latter days of the last century, 600 cable cars clanged around town, making people happy. Only 38 or so are left to fulfill that task, but those few are treated gently. Even the passengers who help turn them around at the end of the line handle them with care. There wouldn't be any cable cars left if it hadn't been for one special passenger. When city officials tried to replace them all with buses 20 years ago, Mrs. Hans Klusman led a successful rebellion that ended with a rock-bound guarantee in the city charter that cable cars would go on forever.
We fought City Hall and we won. And this was an incredible thing to do.
even to take them on, you know, because we didn't know what we were doing, actually. We just walked in, barged in, and everybody wanted to help us. This was wonderful. We could walk in anywhere or talk to anybody, and they all said, cable cars? Oh, well, I'll do anything you want. And they did. They just helped.
I see the cable cars are still here.
That's right. They're still here. This is 20 years later.
Isn't this kind of a slow way to go in a fast age? Wouldn't you like to see sleek, modern transport on the streets of San Francisco?
You mean an old smelly bus? What are you talking about? Of course not. I think this is great. Do you know that you can put 100 people on a cable car and you have a feeling of camaraderie amongst them? Nobody is, you hear laughter as we're hearing right now. But you put these same people on a bus, and everybody's grouchy and grumpy, and they're criticizing and mad, everything else. Never on a cable car, they don't get mad at all. And I think that's one of the charms of a cable car, really.
The view from the cable cars is just perfectly superb.
Well, now, you know, this is a funny thing for you to say, because actually some of these streets are very shabby. But you know, this little funny cable car gives these streets a sort of an elegance.
Aren't cable cars a bit of an anachronism, really?
Oh, of course they are. Of course they are. Isn't it? It's mad that a city like San Francisco, you know, a so-called modern city, you know, should have cable cars. It's a mad idea. But this is a part of the city atmosphere, and it's part of why San Franciscans love San Francisco. When you first came to San Francisco, you said, this is my favorite city, didn't you? And it's your wife's favorite city. It's everybody's favorite city. All right, you said that. I'm taking your words. And why did you say it? Why? Because one of the reasons is because we have these funny anachronisms running around on our downtown streets.
Half the kids in town would like to grow up to be Carl Payne, and who could blame them? It is his right, indeed his duty as grip man, to ding-dong his way uphill and down, improvising on the bells, a master of the Powell and Mason line. This sound is the music of San Francisco, the authentic song of the city. Cable cars lose $1 million a year, clatter loudly, snarl traffic, and force everybody to love them. Charles Kuralt, CBS News, San Francisco.
And that's the way it is. Monday, November 18th, 1968. This is Reporter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. What's happening in Cuba?